live? What do you think, Dan? Are we live? Do we check with the fellow?
He's all set.
All set, thank you. Good evening and welcome. This is the twice-a-month meeting of the Danvers Select Board, and you are welcome. It is your building, it is your board, and it is your government. And Gardner, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Gladly. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Gardner. Kathy, first agenda item.
Sure. Approval of the minutes of October 3rd, 2023.
So moved.
Motion and second.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you.
New public business.
Welcome. This is the opportunity to bring to the attention of the board anything that you wish to be brought to the attention of the board, limited to 2 minutes, please.
Absolutely.
And speak right into the microphone.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, members of the board. My name is Ashley Perry, and I'm here on the behalf of Crown Castle LLC. For anybody wondering, Crown Castle is a communications
This
infrastructure
is an
company.
item on the agenda. It's not new business.
the next item.
It's on the agenda.
We're doing new business
Oh,
now.
I-
So if you sit down just for a moment,
I
there might be people
apologize.
that have.
Relax. We must have confused you. So if you could just sit for a second, and we'll try to unconfuse you. Mr. Bradstreet.
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. At the last Select Board meeting, a vote came up for the 8 o'clock start for a liquor license for a business on Endicott Street. I've been thinking about it ever since that night. I'm just troubled by the way it was handled. I think someone asked for some more information, so to make a more reasonable or a more thoughtful process to arrive at whether a vote should be yes or no. As I say, I'm only an observer. It's been on my mind since that meeting about it. I don't know how, or it might end up, if at all, different. It's just that my observation was that I was troubled by the way it was handled. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradstreet. Is there any other new business? Would you please identify yourself and speak right into the microphone?
Name's Gary Evans on Damon Street, across the street from Plains Park. 2 minutes really puts the pressure on. I got notes. First of all, is it a done situation that the dumpster for excess cardboard recycling will be at Plains Park? Has that been decided?
Well, this is really not a question and answer portion of the meeting, but we'll make an exception if you're very clear about your question.
Well, my question is, will there be a dumpster placed at Plains Park for excess cardboard under the new recycling barrel situation where some people have too much cardboard?
Okay.
Maybe I can answer.
Can you speak to that, Steve?
Yeah, I met Mr. Evans the other night at the Budget Conference Committee meeting, and I had suggested that he come tonight to ask that question. The Public Works Department as you know, the Public Works Department has been trying to identify a site other than just the transfer station at the landfill where folks could drop off cardboard that doesn't fit inside the new recycling bins. For many of the same reasons that Plains Park is often identified as a staging area for projects in the downtown area, that it's a site that has good access, which is typically why it's identified as a viable site. I know one of the other sites I believe you had mentioned was the water sewer facility on Canal Street. Public Works looked at that. They do have some concerns with the dump trucks coming in and out of that site and having residential vehicles in and out of that site. But I will continue to talk to David Lane about that and see if there's an alternative to that.
Well, I was going to say, so the only other location considered was the town transfer station.
Well, that is an option. but
Which
we're trying to provide a second alternative to just the transfer station.
Well, so yes, on the Canal Street location, you raised the question of safety with traffic. But I live right across the street from the Plains Park area. I have a whole panoramic view of what goes on over there. Now, that parking lot can hold about probably 120 cars when it really gets going with activities. And to get into that location, you have to drive down, make a right-hand turn at the Public Works facility down there, which is a blind curve. So I fail to see how that is safe in any form or matter compared to, say, the canals. Forget about Canal Street. I don't want to confuse the issue. That's done. Just to stay within my time frame, I took a ride around town yesterday morning. I identified 3 locations that you might want to consider fairly easily, actually. One would be right across the street, this town hall parking lot, which is the most underutilized plot of land in town. I've been through there twice, yesterday and today. It's probably 25% capacity used. The whole far end is vacant, done. And it's very quiet, very private, backs up to the railway station. It's one way in and out the other end for safety purposes. I'm trying to stay within that frame. And the other location I would think would be possible would be the Meadows parking lot off Hobart Street across from the Public Works building. The Meadows is not what it used what it used to be. I don't think there's been ice skating down there, and we just haven't had the weather. And yesterday, is totally dried out. The only way it's viable, I took my son there 35 years ago. There was ice. The only way it's viable is if the grass is mowed, raked out of there, and the whole place flooded. So that becomes a problem. And the other location, there's a small paved parking lot at the Mill Pond on the end toward Holton and the Electric Light Division. Electric Light Division has it barricaded because they have about 9 spools of wiring stored in there, which is taking up about 10% of the whole area. So that is off the safe location, again, with plenty of space. So to sum it up, I would say Plains Park is not the safety area you would expect it to be when you have numerous cars of parents who are totally distracted all the time driving in and out, to say nothing of the heavy vehicles, which is another one of my complaints about the usage of Plains Park, like that huge mound of ground up asphalt. They had 7 of those big long tractor trailer dump trucks in there trying to get rid of that stuff, in and out and in and out. So it's a high traffic area. So I would appreciate it if the town would consider other locations other than Plains Park, because I don't think it can be monitored, and why we're spending all our time trying to turn a park facility into a dump, I have no idea. But I don't want to transgress here. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for your very thoughtful suggestions. Are there any other citizen comments? Thank you. Can we proceed?
A public hearing will be held on the application of Crown Castle Fiber LLC, 1800 West Park Drive, Westboro, Mass., for permission to install approximately 20,444 feet of aerial cable over the public way from Danvers Middleton Town Line, ending at the Danvers Peabody Town Line. Ms. Perry?
Hello
Mr. Chairman,
again.
can I interject?
Yes,
She can have more than 2 minutes, correct?
Oh, yeah. And Jerry had more than 2 minutes, and quite properly so, because there was important stuff to be said. Thank you, Jerry.
I promise, I'll keep it brief.
Well, as long as you speak into the microphone so everyone can hear you, especially me.
Absolutely. Again, my name is Ashley. I'm here on the behalf of Crown Castle Fiber LLC. For anybody wondering, Crown Castle is a communications infrastructure company. We are neither a wireless provider nor a content provider. Our business is primarily communications infrastructure, and we're the best at deploying, operating, and innovating in this space. Here today, we are seeking approval to attach fiber for wired-based communications in Danvers to existing electric poles. Currently, the MIT Research Center is seeking service that would entail attaching approximately 20,444 feet of aerial strand and fiber from a pole intersecting at Manning Avenue and Maple Street, continuing on to Newberry Street southbound, stopping at the 95 southbound overpass. The cable install will pick up on the other side of the 95 southbound overpass, down Andover Street, ending at the Danvers Peabody Town Line, between 3 and 5 Andover Street. This work is fiber only. The proposed construction will take approximately 7 days, and we are looking to complete this
Ashley,
work.
Again, please, take
7 days,
7 days.
yes. And we're looking to complete this work during the day. The crews will be utilizing 2 bucket trucks, flaggers, and police detail, along with signage along the route. We'll be closing the shoulder of the road to minimize traffic impact. If anyone has any questions or concerns, I will gladly take them now.
Thank you. Steve, can you summarize the authority of this board with respect to the application?
I can do that preliminarily, and Clint Allen can do that much more thoroughly, but essentially the applicant needs permission from the board to operate in the right-of-way. Once that's provided, they would negotiate an agreement to hang the wire, and then once that is in place, they'd go through the DPW and electric department to get all the technical specs approved by staff. So they're here tonight seeking permission as step 1 in the process.
Can I ask a follow-up question
Yes,
to the
please.
manager, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, I wish you would.
How does the town select board oversee this process?
Because
It's written in here.
I wouldn't get hung up on the term oversee. You won't be GCing the project,
Well,
but
that's-
you have jurisdiction over the public right-of-way.
Correct.
So they need permission to operate in that
Now,
way.
we give permission.
Subject to the next
Subject
two
to,
steps.
but
Yep.
I just, perhaps, this electric division standard operating procedure may want to be looked at, because it does specify the town select board would oversee this process.
I'm guessing that's standard, but we have the responsible party for reviewing said policy sitting in the audience, and I think he's probably taking notes, so.
Don't leave permanently, Ashley.
Yeah, you stay right
Okay,
here.
thank you.
Clint Allen, Assistant Utility Director for
Welcome,
the Electric
Clint.
Division. Thanks, nice to see everybody. So to answer Mr. Bennett's question, the Select Board has the oversight to implement MGL 166, which is for the town to allow a licensed and accepted communications company the rights to access the right-of-way. So tonight, we're looking for the permission to grant to the licensee or attachee to affix cables, wires, or optical fibers comprising the cable communication system to existing poles and conduits on and under public streets and ways, provided the licensee secures the permission and consent of the public utility, being Danvers Electric, to affix the cables and/or wires to their pole and conduit facilities. So as Mr. Bartha explained, tonight, the Select Board is going to grant permission to Crown Castle to have access to the public right-of-ways for the purpose of, installing their communication facilities.
So without going any further, Clint, I understand all that.
Okay.
But somebody should look at that sentence, the town select board will oversee this process. I mean,
So I think, is
somebody
that,
could come and say that we should be out there watching in the roadway as it goes up, and I don't think
Yeah.
that's the case. I'm just wondering if it's a matter of changing that language somehow to
Yeah,
keep the
you-
same meaning, but not
you're ta-
imply.
This is page 4?
Thank you.
This-
Yep.
Okay, so I
It
think,
is.
we could we can certainly
just
clean
look
that
at
up.
it.
Yeah, we can clean
Okay.
that up. I think the intent was the town select board would oversee this process being just that first step, which is what we're here tonight.
So,
That's a good explanation, then you could put that in there
Okay,
somehow.
yeah, we'd be happy to do that.
Okay.
well, I guess it's for clarity, and maybe this is where we shy into the Town Managers Act too. Are we voting to allow them to be on the streets to do the installation for the 7 days? And/or are we allowing them to place wires on town property? And
With-
I think the second half is yours, the town managers, because you control what goes on town property, don't you?
I would say yes, with a caveat that with a lot of telecommunications, and we had the small cell bylaw or ordinance before the board a few months ago, the state offers a lot of authority to these companies to operate. So we have some jurisdiction
Right.
determining the when, the where, and the how, but not the if.
So we're voting on the 7 days of installation.
I don't know necessarily that I think that's for information. It's not like when they're putting the
We
scaffolding
wouldn't
right
hold them
away.
to that, I don't
Yes.
think.
Yeah.
Right, because they're gonna have to do repairs.
Right. So, Clint and Ash, I'm sorry to interfere with your presentation, but that sentence jumped out at me, and just, Clint, have your legal people take a look
Yeah,
at it.
yeah, I made a note.
Okay,
We'll
thank
take a
you.
look.
That's all.
Clint, will you and Ashley stay there, please? Because other board members may have questions or comments, because this is kind of all new to me, so I suspect it may be new to others. Matt, do you have comments or questions?
Yeah, I had a few questions for Ashley first. So I think at the beginning of your presentation, you mentioned MIT. Are they the sole user of this circuit?
That is correct.
Okay. And it sounds like it starts in the middle of nowhere and ends in the middle of nowhere. So is that just for Danvers piece of it?
That is
It
correct as well.
ties into existing circuits that somehow terminated at the
Yes, and it happens to just run through the town of Danvers.
Okay.
So you guys are just in the pathway.
Right. Because I was just, wasn't clear who your competitors were. Like, for example, it sounds like CenturyLink, which offers kind of like a secure circuits that aren't really shared by anyone else. So this is dedicated solely for MIT.
That is
And
correct.
what is the time frame for this project? Is it sounds like for many years, right? If you're investing this kind of resource.
Well, this project is a short project. Once, the work is complete, it'll get MIT up and running, and they'll be up and running on our services
Okay.
until, they no longer would like them, hopefully forever.
So you're not like a competitor of Comcast or Verizon that would offer end user connectivity?
That is correct. We are more so a tower, so it's like big picture as opposed to
Yeah,
servicing
I understand.
the
Yeah,
individuals.
they're like dedicated circuits, okay. And then I had a couple of questions for Mr. Allen, if I may.
Of course.
So you mentioned, I think, that we're required to allow this company to use our poles and connect to them. Is that, this license, is it like a lease, or is it more of they're purchasing a space on the pole?
So the first step tonight is for the select board to determine that Crown Castle is indeed a legitimate communications company, that they are allowed non-discriminatory access to the public right-of-ways within Danvers. The next step would be, as Mr. Barth had mentioned, that we will negotiate a pole attachment agreement, which will be the master agreement, which will lay out, the pricing, the terms of the connections and the attachments and the services for the life of the contract. And then the last step will be the actual license application with the electric division, wherein Crown Castle will provide us every pole that they wish to attach to, and we will send engineering out to do a make-ready assessment, which basically means what the work is going to be required from the electric division to make sure that we can get the clearance for their wire on the poles. And then once that's determined and they agree to it, we'll perform the make-ready work, and once the bill is paid, then they will be, that'll be the final step to actually install their fiber.
I see. So you're only making space available for them on a time and materials basis?
Correct, yeah. So we'll actually send out for each location. We have a fee that the electric division charges per pole to send it in to, it's a team of engineers actually, but we'll go out and they'll make sure that they're not violating any of the Natural Electric Safety Code clearances. So we have to make sure that we have enough clearance from their facilities, from our, our secondary and primary wires and other equipment.
Yeah, and that was a concern of mine, that it would interfere possibly with Verizon and with Danvers Electric. There are already existing infrastructure that is on the poles, but you're confident that that's not,
Correct, and Verizon being, having half ownership of the pole sets in town, they'll also do a similar make-ready assessment. So we'll make sure that it's not conflicting with anything else that's on the pole.
okay. And then Verizon and Danvers Electric will receive some type of enumeration on like an annual basis for that use?
Correct. Each location has an annual attachment fee.
Yeah. Okay, all right.
Thank you, Matt.
Sounds
Maureen,
like,
do-
just one
oops,
last
sorry.
thing, sounds like it'll complicate the double pole situation where we need to switch cables over to the new pole. But,
We'll
see
talk
how
about that at
works
another
out.
meeting.
Yeah, okay, all right, that's all I have. Thank you for the information, both of you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you,
Maureen, do you
David.
have?
Hi, so your headquarters is in Houston, Texas, is that right? I did some research. And to me, it sounds good that you're just renting the space on the pole. It doesn't cost Danvers anything, Clint, right?
That is
So
correct.
This is another way for us to generate some income, which would be good. And so it's the power pole attachment, right? Is that what it is? The third party, it's this agreement, okay. And you'll be in charge of reviewing that? And they pay for our guys to do all the work? There's no cost to the town
That
whatsoever?
is correct.
If anything, there could be a little profit, which we hope. Let's see. Yeah, I'm with Dan, too. I didn't like how the town select board would oversee the process, because I don't see how we could. We're going to rely on you, the assistant utility director, and the director. Yeah.
Yeah, just again, the intent for that bold sentence, the town select board will oversee this process, it would pertain only to the town approval process, but we will clean up that language.
Okay, great. And do we have the staff to take care of this project, to take on this project right now?
Yeah, we do. We finally secured a new engineer about 6 months ago, so he's going to help out, but we have another engineer that actually used to perform this type of work at a previous employer, so he knows the drill, and we have the equipment for it. And we now, since the last, I think it's been about 5 years since we approved one of these, we have now implemented a standard per pole attachment make-ready assessment fee, so we will actually recover the cost to send that engineer team out to the field for each assessment.
Music to our ears, that's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Let's see. What else did I write down? I think. That's it. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you,
Perfect.
Maureen.
Thank you.
Dan, do you have other
I have
questions?
no other questions. Clint answered the process, and I have a better understanding of what's being done.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Guard, have you other?
Just a couple. One is, I presume we can speak for those poles owned by Verizon as well, or do you have to strike a separate deal with Verizon?
So, because we own the top portion of the gain, so we have them under the complete license with that pole attachment agreement.
Okay, so maybe I misinterpreted when we say we own half the poles, Verizon owns half the poles, you're saying the gain
So they own the
itself is all
bottom
ours.
45%, we own the top 55%, and
Oh,
they have,
okay.
if, it actually the right-of-way in town, so they have, if you go through town, and I don't know if I should say this at a public meeting, but if you see all those metal brown brackets that are all over the old poles,
Yep.
that's Verizon set, so that's their way of keeping the poles up for a little bit
Okay,
longer.
I
Yeah.
didn't realize.
So they're responsible for half the sets in the town, and Danvers Electric is responsible for the other half.
Well, that's news. After all these years, I didn't
Learned some-
realize half and half meant half and half,
Yeah.
not every other.
Right.
The other question I have is, actually, for you, please, Ashley. You're headquartered in Texas, you have a local presence in Massachusetts. Do you have 7x24 service people available to you?
Absolutely.
Okay,
There
just
is somebody,
because we have accidents all parts of the day, or when we're doing double pole replacements, whatever it is, and I'm certain that, I'll just ask to confirm, I shouldn't presume, that Castle will be in a certain order, I'm assuming Danvers Electric, then Verizon, then whoever else, and it's a certain order, but that you'd be able to respond if there was an emergency in the middle of the night.
yes,
Because I'm sure you have SLAs for IT anyhow, but you'd want to respond. Okay, as long as you have the service people here to help make sure it happens. I'm all set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Guy. Any further questions or comments from the board? From the audience, it is a public hearing. Thank you, Jerry.
Gary,
Jerry, would you
Gary.
go, please, to the podium?
Gary,
Gary?
Gary.
Sorry, Gary. Okay. It's my age.
Talk about age. Don't start that.
Let's not go there. Bradstreet won't let me.
Now you made me forget what I was doing. Are the poles that are being attached to the newer, taller, stronger poles, so we aren't going to run into a problem of Danvers Electric replacing poles at that? Because you used the term "make-ready," which kind of scared me a little bit. Thank you.
Thank you, Gary.
Sure. Good question. So we will have to look at the specific route offhand. A lot of, going down 62 Route 1, those are all newer poles, so we don't anticipate new pole sets. When we get through, actually, it'd be more in like the Verizon set, we have the older poles in town, there may be the need to install new poles and create that double pole situation temporarily to make sure that we get that clearance. Because some of the old poles are only 30, 35 feet, and we're looking that we need to install more like 45-foot poles now.
So pardon me, who's paying for that? The new poles?
I think Ashley is, right? You brought the checkbook? Okay.
Yes, these will cover
Okay.
all make-ready costs.
Yes.
That's the term, make-ready. That's the one I'm concerned about.
Yep.
Any other public questions, comments with respect to this application?
I move we close the public hearing.
Motion to close.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It's a vote. And is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, make a motion that we approve the application of Crown Castle Fiber LLC, 1800 West Park Drive, Westboro, Mass., for permission to install approximately 20,444 feet of aerial cable over the public way from Danvers Middleton Town Line, ending at the Danvers Peabody Town Line pursuant to Mass General Laws, Chapter 166, Section 22.
Thank you, Mr. Bennett. Is there a second?
Second.
Second. Any further discussion on the motion? Then a vote, please. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you, Ashley, for being with us tonight. Thank you, Clint, for clarifying things for me.
All of us.
For all of us, Clint.
A public hearing will be held on the application of Starbucks Corp., doing business as Starbucks Coffee, 301 Newbury Street, Daniel Brennan, manager, for a common victular license at that location.
You will speak into the microphone so I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Daniel.
I am. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, board
Welcome,
members.
Daniel. Welcome.
My name's Daniel Brennan. I handle permits and licenses for Starbucks. So I'm here today for a new store. It's under construction now over on Newbury Street. And I believe it's over near the Stop and Shop. So it's a freestanding coffee shop building, so no other tenants. It's just over 2,200 square feet. We have 28 indoor seats and 22 patio seats. And we're requesting hours 5 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we're hoping to open Friday, November 17th, if everything works out with the schedule.
Thank you. There's probably questions. If you could remain there, Dan. and,
Sure.
It is a public hearing, but first, questions from members of the board? Matt?
I'm all set. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen?
There's been a traffic study on this too, like how's the traffic gonna come in, come out, you know? It's just, I see it's pretty congested there with Stop and Shop and that new Crunch Fitness place.
Yeah, I mean, we personally weren't part of the traffic study. Our landlord did all the site development, but it does seem like there's a lot of space there. We have the double drive-through.
Okay.
It seems like there's ample parking and space for our use, at least.
And you said 2,200 square feet?
Yeah, just over
Roughly.
that.
No, that's it, David.
Is that it?
Yeah, that's it.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan?
No questions.
Gardner?
No, this looks fine. This is on the far side of, it's not even in front of Stop and Shop. It's way over. on
Yeah, it's in the
right.
corner.
If you're facing out Stop and Shop, way over on the other side of the parking lot, across towards the right-hand side.
Yeah.
I can't remember, is this gonna be the second one to open, or are you before the one that's up?
This is, I believe, the second one. The other one's on Endicott from last year,
Okay, I
right?
didn't- I
Yeah,
didn't-
that opened.
I'm not a customer, so I didn't know which one opened first, but,
Yeah.
okay.
This one's under construction. It's going to open in about a month.
Sort of near where the EV car charger area is. Okay, I'm all set, thank you.
That's where they park the snow plows in the winter, down that corner of the, okay.
Find someplace new.
Find another place for the snow plows. Let me see. This is a public hearing. Are there any questions, comments from members of the Mr. Bradstreet?
Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. Just 2 comments. If the trucks are parked where he wants to be, then the drivers should be able to get, not free, but get a good cup of coffee so they can work.
The snowplow people?
Yes,
Okay.
as with everybody, but with the snowplow people per se. And it's nice to have another convenient spot in town for a good cup of coffee. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bradstreet. Are there any other public comments or questions?
I move we close the public hearing?
Move to close. Is there a second?
Second.
And all in favor?
Aye.
That is a vote. And is there a motion?
I move we accept the application as presented.
Thank you, Ms. Trask. Is there a second?
Second.
Is a second. Is there further discussion on the motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Thanks for being in here, and good
Thank
luck
you.
with your new
Thank you all.
project.
Appreciate it.
The board will consider 5 applications for one-day wine and malt beverages by the Cellar Door, B. Taberry, and Bruce Flynn, event managers, for 2023 Paint and Sip Series at Endicott Park, 57 Forest Street, from 5:30 to 7 p.m. on Wednesdays, October 25th, November 8th, November 15th, and on Wednesdays in 2024, January 17th and February 7th.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. You, B?
Hi, yep, good
Welcome,
evening.
B.
I was here in the spring when we first started the Paint and Sip series, and so we were just asked to continue into the winter. It's 5 evenings, as Kathy said, at Endicott Park, and it's just for an hour and a half, paint and sip kind of series.
Okay. Of course, there may be some questions
Yeah.
from members of the board. Matt, do you have questions, comments?
Just, is it in the carriage house, these events?
Yep.
Okay. And there are town staff will be on site during these events?
Yes.
Like the rangers or whatever?
Right. Normally, Erica is the one who's there,
Okay.
but yeah, there's always 2 staff members there.
Okay, all right. No, sounds like a fun time.
Yeah,
Thank you.
it is.
Thank you, Matt. Maureen?
No questions, David?
Thank you, Maureen. Dan?
All set, thank you.
Guard?
Just who will be there that's tip certified?
Yeah, I will be.
You, okay, thank you.
Thank you. It is a public hearing. Are
No.
there- It's not a public hearing, so you can't say anything. Okay. Is there a motion?
I move we accept the application for 5, I move we accept all 5 applications as presented.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thanks for being with us tonight, B. Good luck with your wonderful projects.
Thank
She's
you.
going to stay. She's got the next agenda item.
Oh, well, don't go. Speak right up.
The board will consider an application for a one-day wine and malt beverage license by the Cellar Door, B. Taberry, event manager, for a pet open house at the Natural Dog, 29 Elm Street, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Sunday, November 5th, 2023.
You can tell us what that's about, B?
So I guess they had it last year also, but we weren't part of it. It's kind of a customer appreciation open house that they do. So there was a map that we submitted with our application where they have the food and beverages which will be outside. And so it's 11 to 3 on Sunday, November 5th, and it's wine and beer.
Okay, thank you. There may be questions. Matt?
Sure, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So you just mentioned outside, so what if there was inclement weather, you would have space indoors as well? Or
I
no?
don't believe they'll have it. I'm not 100% sure, but I don't think they have the space inside to have it. I think
see.
it would be canceled, most likely.
And
Or
when you say outside, can you define the space that they will be used?
there's a map that I
is
submitted
there?
with the application that
okay.
has, it shows the borders of
Yeah, I think that-
the alcohol will be consumed.
I don't think I have the map. So there's kind of, it was a bank, I think, so there was like a kind of a drive. There's the municipal lot on one side.
Beautiful building.
Oh, I see, okay. Oh, yeah, okay, I understand now.
They're setting up the same way that they did the last time
Okay,
they had the
all
event.
right. That's all I had.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Maureen?
No, that's, no questions.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, do you have
No, I'm all set, thank you.
guard?
No, I presume you'll be the same person, so all set.
Okay. Is this a public hearing? This is not a public hearing, Mr. Bradstreet. Is there a motion?
I move we accept the application as presented.
And a second?
Second.
Thank you. Further discussion on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thank you.
Good luck.
Could be-
The board will consider an application for a one-day wine and malt beverage license by St. Mary's School, Joyce Bucieri, event manager, at 14 Otis Street for music bingo from 6 to 9 p.m. on Friday, November 3rd, event to be held in the gym.
Hi, everyone. I'm Joyce Bucieri. I'm the administrative assistant at St. Mary's, and this is my principal, Erica Gabbianelli. So
Welcome
what
to
we'd
you
like
both.
to do is, throughout the years, we've done a candy bar bingo for the kids, and our enrollment's up. We'd like to make a real community event for the parents. So that's why we're doing a music bingo, and I got tip certified, and we're asking that night just to serve beer and seltzers.
Thank you. Questions from the board? Matt, do you have any questions or comments?
No questions, just wish you success for the event.
Thank you.
Thank you. And Maureen?
Sounds fun.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan?
No, I'm all set, good luck.
Great, thank you.
Dan? Gary?
I'm all set too.
Thank you. Wait a second, we're going to give you a vote before you go.
Okay.
Is there a motion on the application?
I make a motion that we approve the application as presented.
Thank you, Dan. And a second. And further discussion on the motion? Hearing none. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? It is a vote. Thanks for hanging
Great,
around
thank you.
tonight.
A public hearing will be held under Chapter 138 of the General Laws on the application of Sonesta International Hotels Corp., doing business as Sonesta Select Boston, Danvers, 275 Independence Way, Whitney Gillings, Administrator, for a change of officer directors. Appearance not required.
This is, I believe, the first instance in which we are utilizing our new policy of not requiring appearance when there is a corporate reorganization far removed from the local operation. So that's what this is, Kathy.
Correct.
Notwithstanding, members of the board may have discussion or questions about the application papers. Matt, anything come to mind for you?
Not for this application, no.
Thank you. Maureen?
All set, David?
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, anything?
If I may, through you to the clerk, who's Blue Bonnet Consulting?
That's a company that they hire to do some of their administrative work on their liquor licenses.
Okay, rather than an attorney?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. That's all, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Dan. Guard, questions,
questions.
comments, nothing? Let me see, is this a public hearing? Nope. It's not.
I did it as a public hearing.
Oh, you did?
Just
Sorry.
in the event that the public had something to add.
Does the public have anything to add? Nothing.
Close the public hearing?
Motion to close in the second, and all in favor?
Aye.
It is a vote. Is there a motion?
Motion to accept the application change, or the changes as presented.
Thank you,
Second.
God, and a second. Is there further discussion on that motion? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And that is a vote. Thank you.
The town manager will report to the board on various items of interest, including the trash fee discussion at the recent budget conference committee meeting.
Thank you, Kathy, Mr. Chairman. Two updates. First, quickly, a reminder and invitation tomorrow night at 6 o'clock at the Holton Richmond. Stan Tech will be holding an interactive community workshop on our strategic plan. They've worked throughout the summer to expand outreach and get more individuals involved in the process. They have thousands of individuals who have taken the survey. We gave them a charge this spring to ensure that we challenged them and said we wanted to have the highest participation rate of any planning process they've done. So they accepted that challenge, and we'll be sharing tomorrow night a draft vision statement and preliminary goals based on the thousands of touch points that they had with individuals and groups across the community. So 6 o'clock to 8 o'clock tomorrow night at the Holton Richmond. If folks cannot attend in person but want to participate, on the town website you can find a link to view the meeting remotely. So that's something I hope everybody will take advantage of. And then the second one is to summarize the discussion and talk a little bit about next steps in terms of the Budget Conference Committee that was conducted earlier this week. I recognize everybody in the room, but in case anybody is watching that is sort of new to this process, I'm going to summarize a little bit the process that we've gone through, share some new information, and then also talk a little bit about next steps. So folks in this room know, but just to sort of set the context, the existing trash contract that the town of Danvers had with 135 gallons of weekly curbside collection had really become a relic of a bygone era. We negotiated that contract about a quarter century ago. For context, the current year budget was about 60% higher than the prior year. It went from $1.4 million to about $2.3 million for collection, disposal, and recycling. That was even with automated service and biweekly recycling. Had we tried to mirror the service level, even at a reduced volume rate, we would have been north of $3 million year over year. So the 60% increase was worked on by making changes to the way that the service was provided. Dave Lane and his team began discussing this with us a couple years ago. They need to go through this process, and they really did an excellent job last winter bringing vendors into the fold. I had mentioned on Tuesday we had 4 bidders respond to our RFP. This is an area where a lot of communities are lucky to get 2. Typically it's 1 when they put out a request for these types of proposals. It's a tough industry, but we had Republic, Waste Management, Casella, and Mello all have a footprint regionally. All of them responded to our bid, and we were able to go through several rounds of negotiation with them before ultimately landing on Republic. The current budget absorbed this cost, which is about between an $850,000 and $880,000 increase, only because at the midway through the budget process, the state released state aid numbers, and the town received about $1.4 million in additional school aid as part of the Student Opportunity Act. We knew this spring 25 was shaping up to be a difficult budget year, one where we would be looking at a trade-off between talking about reductions to core services or finding new revenue due to inflation, out-of-district special education costs, which we've been talking about for a couple of years, all of the collective bargaining agreements that expire for town and school employees next June, Essex Tech, pension, healthcare, and of course the new trash contract. So all of these costs, many of which are outside of our control, outstripping our ability to pay. And then, Dan, as chair this spring, called the Budget Conference Committee together. The first time in the 9 years that I've worked in Danvers that body has been pulled into the same room with representation from the Finance Committee, the School Committee, the Library Trustees, and the Select Board. We met in June, and in August, we explored options ranging from reductions to core services to zoning for growth. We've been zoning for redevelopment. Danvers hasn't really experienced growth. We've experienced change. We talked a little bit about what it would look like to really zone for growth. There was not an appetite for that. We talked about revisiting recreational marijuana. Was not an appetite for that. We talked about revisiting the conversation about limiting Essex Tech enrollment. That's also something that's outside of our control. There was broad consensus among the attendees that cutting services was not supported, and that a trash fee, especially in light of the 60% increase in cost, was the most reasonable first step to ensure service solvency moving forward, which is what brought us to October's meeting, which was conducted earlier this week. Last week. The days are all blurring together in my mind. It was last week, but based on the consensus last week among the Budget Conference Committee members and support from 3 of the 5 board members for a $200 trash fee, staff met on Monday, yesterday, to talk a little bit about what the next steps would look like in terms of implementing a trash fee starting next July. And I plan to provide details to this board in November based on the feedback that we got at the staff level yesterday. We had Erica DiDonato and Cheryl Stanford from our DPW admin office who have fielded probably 95% of the phone calls from residents over the last couple of months. We wanted their input so we could understand what they were hearing. So what I'd like to do in November is bring back kind of the full plan based on what we've heard to reaffirm the support of this board, and then to move forward. So a couple of things I wanted to update the board on based on yesterday's meeting, and I think to Mr. Evans' point from earlier in the evening, one of the biggest pinch points that we've experienced in the rollout of this is that the biweekly recycling has been a real challenge for a number of residents. There's concern about having to take the overflow to the transfer station or Plains Park. We know that the vendor is also, the volume that's being put out every other week is a challenge for them as well. So we have contacted them to have a conversation. They were very eager to talk to us to think about what that might look like. And so if it's possible to revisit the idea of weekly recycling in a way that won't have a major impact on the fee that we discussed, I think that's something that we'd bring back to the board to present. We've also, based on feedback both Thursday and from residents who've reached out, started to talk about whether we can set up essentially a split rate so that folks who are requesting the smaller cans can pay slightly less for those cans and folks who are going to use the full size. Couple reasons for that. The cost is essentially the same because the collection route and numbers don't change. The ARM is still picking up a can. But we want to acknowledge the use and acknowledge that the folks who are requesting these smaller cans by and large are seniors and folks who are finding the large cans unwieldy. We have a list started with around 75 names on it, again, out of 7,900 customers who have expressed an interest in having the smaller cans. So that's in process. And we've also, based on the costs that were presented last Thursday, established what the fee will be for, the price will be for an additional container. So folks who are interested in requesting an additional trash can would be a $160 annual fee for that receptacle. Recycling would be $100. And as has been discussed publicly a few times, we would start taking requests for those on November 1st. Based on phone calls that we have received, we would estimate somewhere between 150 and 250 customers, again, out of 7,900, would want an additional can. Again, I think that kind of summarizes what we discussed yesterday, and as I mentioned, my plan would be to come back at one of the November meetings, share any sort of nuances to what was presented last week, and then look to reaffirm the support from the board moving into FY25.
Thank you.
Happy to take any questions.
Other items from you, Steve?
That's it for me, thanks.
Let me see, where are we now?
Can we ask questions of the town manager?
Sure, why don't we do that? Guard, do you want to start?
Sure. Regarding trash, I appreciate that, and I appreciate you explaining your thought process on moving forward, because we had the meeting last week, we had said we would bring it up for discussion here and potentially a select board vote to give you a direction, but I agree with you that in the meeting last week and the meeting prior, actually all three, the strong consensus was that we would look at that above the other options which were less palatable. One of the questions, and I'm glad to hear that the company is looking to discuss the recycle pickup. One of the questions I asked the town manager, just to let people know, is I asked how much would adding a weekly recycle program increase the budget? And at that time, the rough numbers, not exact, were roughly $395,000, which would equate to about $50 a week for each of the 7,900 people. I would think that that actually would not everybody is concerned about being able to recycle in a 2-week period. But if there's savings to be had or a better accommodation to be had, that would not only serve the people who do think that they have more recycle than it can fit in a barrel for 2 weeks, but also the potential for needing extra barrels. So my presumption is that if people do buy extra barrels, they'll have the opportunity, if they discover they don't need it later, they'll be able to sell it back to the town. Would that be, or could you discuss that when you bring back the November options? So, thank you. Those are my comments, specifically about the weekly recycle issue. So, thank you.
Did you wish to respond, Steve? Thank you. Anything else, Garrett?
No, I'm also for the town manager's part. I'm all set.
Dan, any further?
No, I'm fine, thank you.
Maureen?
Yes, David, thank you. Steve, I feel a little bit better with this meeting. It sounds to me like you're looking at more options for the residents. We're at that budget meeting. The other night, it was a little crazy, with people getting up there and maybe not having enough time. And maybe we talked about putting more social media out there for people to come. Remember how and I think I announced it all the time, for people to come to those meetings, to come to that meeting in particular.
I hate when that happens.
Does that mean that I'm done?
No, not at all. Because I tried to turn this off, but I was gonna but I left it on to time the public comment. Well, there really wasn't any except Gary's splendid comment. So in any event, I'm sorry.
That's
Excuse me,
okay.
Maureen.
As everybody probably does know, that I did vote against the trash fee. I hope that, I think, Steve, I'd like to see if you could table this, get some more data, talk amongst us board members. I know you did say that the town manager, under the Town Manager Act, has the right to impose the fee. So I would, like to ask you to consider all options with the cost, and for the residents, for people that are on fixed incomes, for the elderly, for the veterans. The split rate, that's something new that we're talking about. So it sounds like you're really thinking about more from taking away from people's comments at the meeting, ourselves. We don't want to impose fees, like I said, on residents anymore. It's just, it's getting to be too much with inflation, with the interest rates, the cost, the economy, services that we provide. We love our town, right? We don't want to have to give up any of our services. We don't want to have to give we don't want to have to cut any costs for the kids in school, too. We can't help with the rising costs, but we've got to look at other avenues for income. For instance, the polls. It might be a little bit, but every little bit helps. So that's pretty much, I did want to say that if we can look at the recycling, every week, like you said, do a survey, that might help. I've seen, driving around the neighborhoods, I'm sure everybody's seen it, the trash is like overflowing for some people. And I don't want our town to be messy. I don't want to see trash everywhere. And I also did hear, Steve, and you might want to have Dave and his team check that we've hired Republic. And I heard that the city of Lawrence dismissed Republic because of their poor service, just recently.
Because of their what, Maureen?
Their poor service, reliability, and I believe, because I've been trying to do some research for the residents, that Capital is taking over. So that's another company that, I got a little nervous saying, geez, we just hired them, and some bad reviews already. So if we could ask the town manager to possibly do more research, table this, consider the residents. There were some people that were up at the budget conference last week that, you know, I think it was Matt Byrne was doing the math where it was like $88 when you did the math. You know, I don't want to see 200. I don't want to see any fees. So if we could revisit that, Steve. And the other question I had for you, too, is with regards to the Holton-Richmond strategic plan tomorrow night, can that be taped? Because I can't come. I've got a prior commitment. Maybe, can it be recorded?
I'm not sure, I can ask.
Because that would be something nice to watch. And, you know, it's important that, I just want to say, the town meeting is very important. So if there's any vacancies in your precinct, this is where you've got to get the people in to really vote for this stuff. And that's about it. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen.
Mr. Chairman, may I make comment?
Sure.
Like I didn't before. This rolling out of a new trash contract, signing a new contract, big change. It's not the same model we had before. There's a lot of thought that went into it, and obviously as that started to roll out, there were glitches that came up that weren't anticipated. And I think the manager explained that they're having discussions to review the glitches, if you will, or how they can fine-tune this multi-million-dollar contract going forward. So I look forward to Steve coming back with some of the thoughts that he mentioned tonight. And I know we had that meeting yesterday with DPW people and input from the people that better versed on trash than we are. And I think this will all iron out in the long run. But you can't just start up a new program day one and have everything work perfectly. If we could have things work perfectly the first day, that would be amazing, but it doesn't happen. So I look forward to November's updates on how he's going to service those people with special requests.
Thank you, Dan. And I don't believe, Maureen, that there was anything as far as a vote of tonight.
No. I was just wanted to, you know, say, I like the idea that,
You want more thought going into it?
well, more thought going
Yeah.
into it. You know, I don't like the fact that the town manager just can say it without, I mean, he wants to converse with us. And I wish it could be a vote for something like that, too. But
Okay.
anyways, thank you, David.
Gard, did you have anything
I
else?
said my piece, thank you.
Okay. Where are we, Kathy?
Right here,
Oh, Matt, I'm sorry.
down at the end.
Well, I used to sit in that chair way down there, and no one ever recognized me.
So I just, for a question for the town manager, concerning the smaller barrels for people that may have physical difficulty moving them around. So that would be a smaller trash barrel and a smaller recycle barrel?
Correct.
Okay, and then there would be a corresponding decrease with the fee,
And again,
potential
just
fee.
the cost to collect those isn't substantively different, but we would want to work to see if we can have, even if it's a slight reduction and a split rate, to acknowledge that.
So I had mentioned this in the past about incentivizing the residents to, you know, if you reduce your, the amount of trash that you generate, there should be some type of financial benefit to that. And I think this is, goes towards that type of initiative. In terms of the folks that are requesting a second trash barrel, do they also get a second recycle barrel?
Not necessarily.
Okay. But there is a kind of a financial penalty for having the second barrel. So if you generate more trash, other residents that, for example, have the smaller barrels, they're not subsidizing that increase in weight.
DPW and Finance went through the budgets and calculated what they thought the actual cost would be, and they came out to within a couple dollars of each other. So $160 for a trash can and $100 for a recycling bin together is about the average cost, so $260. And so the fee that was discussed was subsidized by the tax levy, but for folks who want additional cans, they would be a pass-through cost to them, so that no one else is subsidizing that.
And then just one last thing, Maureen had mentioned noticing trash barrels with bags on top, so they're overfilled, you know, beyond the capacity of the barrel, so the top isn't closed, and then there's, you know, there's a bag on top of that, so that's an additional amount of
Folks
weight.
shouldn't be doing that.
Yeah. So will they be bypassed, or what will be the penalty for that?
During the already bumpy rollout, I don't think we're bypassing anybody, especially until the automated trucks are here. But once the automated trucks are here, if folks are doing that, they might have their trash left. So
'Cause I
it
know
needs to-
the-
it needs to fit inside the barrel.
I often see a DPW person kind of tailing
Frank.
the trash trucks to make sure that, you know, the performance, you know,
He has our eyes on the
agreements.
street, and he does a great
Yeah,
job.
he does, and kudos to him for keeping people honest. So that's all I have for the town manager. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Bill has his hand up. Do you think you want to recognize him?
Mr. Bradstreet, Speaker Emeritus.
Again, Bill Bradstreet, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. My household, there are 2 of us. I thought the trash pickup was every other week. I'm looking at the calendar, maybe I looked at it wrong. I didn't have my glasses on. The point being that my rubbish, trash, recyclables, trash is one of the recyclables, I could probably put it out every other month because I don't generate enough. Well, my wife and I aren't eating that much, so it's easier for us to reduce our recyclables. Does that have any effect? I mean, if people are putting out a recyclable container that's overflowing, that's one thing, but I barely use mine. I put it out this week and it's half full maybe. Is that a benefit to the town, or is it just part of what goes on?
I think my guess in a couple months, Bill, is with 7,900 customers, we may have 100 to 250 who are putting out a second barrel. We may have some, like I may not put out my trash every week. I may put it out every other week just because we don't produce a lot of trash. In the wash, you know, we have a collection number in that contract that was negotiated based on customers. That'll get adjusted year to year. I think in the scheme of things, if you're leaving yours out and somebody else has a second, it's going to wash. So, but I would, if it's a quarter empty, you don't have to put it out. You can keep it for a week.
Thank you. I'll work on it.
Gary. Please, if you'd go to the,
Don't chew me out again.
no, you're not even on a timer this time.
Should be, thank you. I have a question. I have a question and 2 or 3 comments. The question is, I'm confused. Is this trash fee to reimburse the town for the initial cost of the barrels, or is it an ongoing reduced cost to the town of trash contract? It's ongoing,
The fee that we're discussing is associated with the cost of providing trash collection
so it's
services.
ongoing.
Correct.
I was at the second informational meeting the Republic put on here, and it seemed to me the people that were concerned about the cardboard or any recycling, pardon me, were those that had an in-law apartment, so they were generating more per barrel. And then you also had the people that had running a home business. Now, to be hard-hearted about it, I don't see why we should worry about the people running a home business. They should go buy more barrels
And they'll have the option to do that.
because they were right on the verge of a commercial enterprise. So I'm not too concerned about worrying about their overflow when they should be buying more barrels. And speaking to the Precinct 1 over here, the calendars they put out, you've got the blue week and the green week, the colors are the same. I can't even tell the difference unless I get a special light and look at it. That's why they should be reprinted.
We may not reprint them all right away, but you're not the first person to offer that feedback to us.
I'm not. I can't believe it. So then, the last comment is, if you're thinking of attaching this fee to the water bill, let me forewarn you that there are many units, because my daughter has a condo in Beverly, and I know about this, where they converted 3 families, maybe 1, 2, 3, and they kept 1 water meter. So if you go by water meter, you're going to lose some of your fee.
We had our Public Works business manager in the meeting yesterday morning, so.
So you're aware of that?
We are aware of that.
Plus the multifamilies where they had the 1 meter, and you actually have 2 or 3 or 4 users.
But
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, just to that point, I actually discussed this at the time, the water or the electric bill is just a mechanism to get a bill out. If a landlord, and I'm gonna pick on Mr. Bennett gets the bill for the water, he apportions that to his tenants.
I can't charge tenants for water.
No, but, okay.
So you- I
You'll do it for the trash.
Right, I'll write it off on my expense sheets,
Right,
water.
and he'll do it for the trash. So,
Right.
though he may get one water bill with whatever number of units he has in his home, and I know he has a multi-home, so I'm not picking on him, I just know he has. He got that number of barrels that relate to the households in his home, and though he may get one bill, he's gonna turn around as a landlord and say, hey, you owe this much for your fee for trash. So it's not a one-to-one corollary.
All right, thank you. No, Gary, no, this is not gonna be a free-for-all tonight. I'm sorry, but I just have a life also, even if it's just for sleep. Steve, are you done?
I think Nova wanted to say something.
Oh,
She's the
Nova,
only person here who
please.
hasn't said anything.
Nova Samity, Town Meeting Member, Precinct 1. I'm just, like I said, bring up what I bring up all the time. If we're talking about discounts, for those of us that compost, would be a great reason to give us a discount. I'm not, you know, I don't even want the discount, but it would be a way to incentivize people to compost, which we're going to have to do eventually anyway, environmentally. So if you gave people, because it costs about $230 a year for us to compost, and so if you gave a discount, it would be a benefit for those that do that, and for the environment, and for the amount of trash that is disposed of. Thank you.
Nora, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna bore everybody, if I may.
Okay,
Please.
let's try it.
No, but we compost, we don't pay for it. We do it on our own. Walk by my house and look at my wife's gardens with the compost that we make every day, all year long, in our backyard. No cost.
Nora, it's not a tea group tonight.
True.
Okay.
I happen to pay for it. There is a company that does it and picks it up so that I don't have
I
to
know
make
there
my
is. I
compost.
know
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is.
But you're right, you can do it for free.
Compost
And then
can go on another agenda. No, nothing further
I'm going to
tonight.
keep going on and on about, no.
It's a far cry from the green
All
buckets you had
right,
in your
are we done with
backyard.
trash, Mr. Chairman?
I don't know, I could ask the Madam Clerk, where are we?
We can move along.
Motion
Town
to,
manager is done.
motion to consider consent calendar.
Seconded?
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And that is a vote.
Correspondence, select board, new business, previous new public business, updates, and select board closing comments.
Matt, would you start?
Sure. I'm going to start with the Budget Conference Committee meeting last
Matt,
week.
could you speak closer to?
Yep, can you hear this? No?
Not terribly well.
Steal Maureen's mic. Yeah, so at the Budget Conference Committee meeting last week, things got a little contentious during the discussion, not only with members on the committee, but also with the audience. And during my opportunity to speak, I was interrupted several times, and I thought that really was kind of not appropriate. I didn't interrupt anyone else, and so I felt I had the floor, and I should have been able to speak freely without fear of, people interrupting
If I
me.
had cut you off in any way, I certainly
No, I'm
did.
not speaking about you, Mr. Chairman, just others. I was kind of not prepared for the school presentation, and with the slide deck with the various numbers to kind of explain why trying to bring special students that are out of district to kind of try to come up with this new program to bring them back in-house, so to speak. Because that was really the gist of what the trash fee was going to be used for, right? And so it was kind of towards the end of the meeting, it felt like if you were against the trash fee, you were against supporting special needs students. And that really kind of made a lot of us feel uncomfortable, I thought. And I'd like to do a deeper dive on the school presentation to understand what the long-term costs are, especially if we're not successful in bringing students back to Danvers that we currently send out of district. Because if we're hiring additional staff, there's the salaries, the and then the cost of the benefits that are associated with that. So I would really kind of like to revisit that. Maybe have another meeting of the budget conference. I mean, and this trash fee is, I mentioned last week, it's low-hanging fruit, right? It's not something that you can really increase too much above and beyond what the $200 that's currently being, predicted to be charged. So, and then also during that meeting, I was accused of supporting the layoff of police and fire personnel in terms of my conversation where I mentioned reducing services, that I would somehow target police and fire specifically. And I never mentioned, not at the last week or the meeting prior to that, I never mentioned layoffs, and I certainly didn't mention specific departments. In fact, we know that laying off police and fire wouldn't work in terms of saving money, because just within the past few years, where, especially with the fire department, where we had employees out on injury leave because they got hurt in the performance of their duties, we found that, these apparatus or staffing have a minimum number of employees that are required for each shift, and when we can't meet that threshold, then we have to call in staff on overtime. So the costs actually increase dramatically when we are short-staffed. And that's what I'm going to say for that topic. For Mr. Evans and his comments regarding Plains Park and inappropriate use for the park, I also look out over Plains Park, and the back part of that area is really considered by the town to be a contractor's yard. It's used for various purposes. One of the most egregious was when they were using it as kind of a gravel pit, where they were creating riprap for a frost fish brook, excuse me. And so the neighbors along that Damon Street side are subjected to a considerable amount of industrial activity, whether it be the snow fields in the wintertime, the storage of other debris such as asphalt, spoils from Brown's Pond, trees and stumps, all kinds of inappropriate activity, really, that shouldn't be taking place in a park. And that's just compounded by the growth of the footprint of the DPW facility there. It continues to grow year after year with additional storage containers and other types of structures. So Mr. Evans speaks accurately when he talks about how that impacts the people that live in that area. And I think that's all I have for tonight, sir.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I just I want to offer just a little context or thoughts around the special education topic that I think Matt raised, and I want to acknowledge that at the October meeting, it certainly would appear that we were positioning those side by side, but the groups did meet in June and August, and as I mentioned a little while ago, a lot of different options were discussed in terms of looking at core services moving forward. It just so happened that details on the school's approach to that was something that people wanted more information on, and the trash fee. The schools did, as part of the '24 budget, present to the school committee on a slide that said what's not in the budget, a series of salary and non-salary ideas that they had related to special ed. And and I wish we had put more of this information into some of the earlier presentations, but just for context, the FY22 special education budget for the schools was $6.6 million. The actual that year was $7.2 million. The FY23 budget for special education was $7.3 million. The actual was $9.02 million. And the budget number for the current year's budget for special education is $9.25 million. So we've had to work both the prior 2 winters leading up to town meeting, working with the schools to develop a plan for how to use free cash and circuit breaker to try to balance those budgets. And I think, to be clear, I want to make sure everybody understands we would have budget issues in '25 even if we did nothing with special education. So what was proposed or what was presented to the budget conference committee was in response to, we all acknowledge that out-of-district special ed has the potential to bankrupt the school department. What, if anything, can we do to try to bring some of those kids back and bend that curve moving forward? I think separate and distinct from that, the trash fee was identified by the budget conference committee as a short-term tool, not a silver bullet, because some of the budget drivers that we were talking about this spring and this summer aren't going away. Healthcare trend is not changing. We're on the hook until 2035 to fund the unfunded liability for the pension system. Essex Tech has plans to expand again as soon as they can get their hands on state or federal dollars. So these issues aren't going away. And again, if we level funded special education, we would still be in a position next year where the balancing act is going to be services versus revenue. So I don't want to make anybody, no one should be under the belief that the trash fee is funding special education. Trash fee would be a general fund revenue, would go into the operating budget next year as a new local receipt. The school department would put together a budget with guidance from the school committee. Town departments would do the same on this side of the ledger, and then we would be having the same conversations about the budget we always do.
Thank you, Steve. Let me see, where are we? Dan, did you have?
Me, David, down the side, the right side, yeah. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I think tonight's meeting went pretty well. I'm feeling a little bit more positive, hearing what the town manager has to say about some more ideas, talking with staff and everything. I, too, was a little disappointed at that meeting, David. No offense to you on how the conduct was, taken, not letting enough people know that the meeting was going to be that day and that time. So if we can do more, I don't know, DCAT, social media, whatever we have to do, flyers, something of that importance, I think people need to know.
Can
Also,
just for clarification, and I think Jen may mention that when she was filling in previously, but every Monday the town puts out a very detailed list of all of the upcoming meetings that's shared with DCAT, is shared with We Are Danvers, it goes on all the town social media platforms. So we do try to get the word out all the ways that we can.
what about that telephone number? Doesn't
We
could put something
very
out with
rarely
that.
will use reverse
No, I
911
know,
for
but
anything
you
but
know
elections
how-
and emergencies.
Well, I'm just thinking of ideas, just so people know more. And I do agree with what Matt said, too, is more of a deeper dive into, I was kind of surprised with seeing the school budget, and the slides were very well put together. I think Dan and his team did a great job. Like I said before, I'm not trying to take any money away from the kids for this trash fee. It's a balancing act. We need to really take a deeper dive, like Matt said, into the budget, look into services. We don't want to cut services, lay off any people or anything like that. But are there areas in this town that we can cut? Let's take a look at it. I'm looking forward to meeting with Steve and the group again in November. I've got some ideas. I want to send some emails out, Steve, to maybe some staff, a little bit more about the trash, tonnage, where does it compare? Are we having more trash, less trash? Is this helping? But overall, I think the school budget, it's hefty, we know that, and we do need to get ahead of the curve, but I just don't want to raise fees for the residents, with regards to trash. I mean, we're gonna be talking about real estate taxes soon, so let's try to get ahead of this curve, and I think all of us are ready, able, and willing to help you. Thank you.
Thank you, Maureen. Dan, do you have comments now?
I have nothing worth saying.
Kara, do you?
Oh, that's never true, Dan.
Do you
Yeah,
have-
I do have a couple of comments. One about the last meeting. Social media is a bane to accuracy and in truth. That meeting was well communicated, like every other meeting. It's a public meeting, it was posted, it was on our websites, it was everywhere else. Social media certain people in social media picked it up and framed it as a discussion about the trash program and about the trash fee, which was inaccurate. The agenda was clear, the agenda was pre-posted. We were gonna talk about FY25 pressure points for the budget. We were gonna talk about what's coming up in the budget, what we have to think about. And there were two sides to that coin. There was the school side, which included the whose largest pressure point is special education and the fluctuation that happens there. We've already talked about the fluctuation with the Essex Tech as well. And then the other was the pressure points for the town, where the town manager went through an outline of all of the upcoming pressure points and why, independent of the new trash contract, we were gonna have to pay more for upcoming union negotiations and various aspects, and where we lost the opportunity that we got last year for the $1.5 million from the state as a bonus. We were gonna be below. We got a bonus, a one-time bonus. So I'm sorry that people carried away that meeting was about trash and somehow school crept in. That's not the case. And I'm sorry that people took away that it was trash versus school. You pay for the trash fee so that the school can get, they're separate and distinct. They were as separate and distinct as they were at FinCom last year, or last year's town meeting, when we talked about having citizens pay for the trash barrels and special needs. They're distinct. They happen to come up in the same conversation, the same meeting, but it's not a corollary. They're absolutely different. And the other thing that I think that sometimes people forget, including sometimes members of the various boards, the school board is completely independent of the select board. Their decisions, directions, their proposals, their budget is theirs to make and present. And the select board cannot, by law, influence the school committee and what their budget is. We can listen to what they want to recommend. We can even, as any citizen can, make a recommendation. But it's theirs to present, it's theirs to design, it's theirs to offer. And I think sometimes we bleed over into thinking that we, as a board, can influence them and tell them what to do. If they want to propose a new program, they can propose a new program. If they want to show us the value of it and the cost of it, fantastic, and we should have the right questions for them, but we just can't do that. Social media, everybody has a focus. And if you watch social media and you only view that focus, you miss the bigger picture. And I say this all the time on social media, ask the right people. If you want to know what the setbacks are for building a garage, don't ask the people on social media, they have no clue. Call the building inspector, call the zoning enforcement officer. He'll know. There was a comment earlier, and to be blunt, Matt's responding to comments I made. And that, I never accused you of suggesting there was a layoff to fire and police. At the second budget meeting, you said, when asked, what should we look at, Matt? You said we should look at the police and fire, and that's the same phrasing I've used. I would never, ever, ever use the word layoff. It's demoralizing, it's unhealthy, and even when people of the public mention that and suggest no raises, I bristle at that. You did say, and I gave you credit for saying, because you're one of the first people to say, no, Dave, I want to finish my comment. I've asked people to point out what they think should be cut. Matt was the first person to say something specific. And I was pleased for, and he didn't say he was going to cut, he didn't say he was going to lay off, he said he was going to look at those budgets, which is absolutely appropriate. and I said it was a good thing. So that would be wrong. Off that subject, I would suggest, based on this gentleman's conversation, if you are going to look at alternatives for the recycling, there's a access road to the electric substation at the high school. That might be an opportunity there. I don't want to put more traffic necessarily at the high school or on Cabot Street, but someone's gonna bear the brunt of that traffic anyhow. So just another thought to throw in there.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you. Is it my turn?
Your turn.
First of all, thank you to Matt and Maureen and Dan and Gardner for allowing me to be clumsy as the chair this year. You put up with a lot, and I appreciate it. I do. So thanks for entertaining me. Congratulations to David Lane and his team and Steve. I watched it. I worried about the trash increase, the end of that contract for a year. And I have watched them negotiate, and I think they did a supremely competent job, and wow. Number next, I think the trash along my Danvers streets is so much prettier, with barrels in a row, colors match. It looks great. The next thing is the next thing is to thank Gary and Nora and Bill and Wally Typett for being in the room tonight. Now, Wally's got a business to run and a family, and he's on the finance committee and has been generous for his entire life. I hope we'll see more of you, Gary, because the input that you bring and the presence that you bring of the community into this hearing room, I think is a very valuable thing, and I thank each of you for that. The next thing that drives me nuts is the Massachusetts legislature. They control the Essex Aggie budget, essentially, which is draining too many dollars from the taxpayers of Danvers. We get mutilated by the Essex Aggie budget, and we have no control over that. They run wild because they have the legislative power to do it. The next thing is, if my figures are correct, there are $6 billion worth of real estate in Danvers. $6 billion. $1 billion of that property is not taxed, which means I'm paying somebody else's share of roads, plowing, electrical, and everything else. The legislature is in charge of that because they provide the exemptions that are raping the town of Danvers taxpayers, and I might say another 7 or 8 million taxpayers in Massachusetts. And I don't know what to do about that. I feel very helpless, frustrated, and at my age, I'm going to leave it to you young people to take care of. The other thing, and I've said this a couple times, the Surgeon General of the United States has considered isolation to be a deadly, deadly contagious disease for older citizens in this country and in this town. And I urge people who are sometimes widows and widowers, whose lives have drastically changed, don't stay home. We have Danvers Recreation Department, we have the Danvers Senior Center, we have your churches, different community groups, especially I go to the Danvers YMCA 5 days a week, a welcoming place and very safe for older people. There's grab bars and all of they're really attentive to aging people. You are welcome. There are things going on that are very exciting. Next thing is, I won't talk for long, but social media. It has driven me nuts for the last several years. People say, well, you can find it on social media. I said, what the hell is social media? And so, at the last select board meeting, Jen Breaker, our assistant town manager, came and gave a beginning presentation, Social Media 101. I'm going to ask if she'd be willing to come back and do Social Media 102. And I learned from her presentation that Danvers has a phenomenal website, and practically anything that you want to know about what is available in Danvers, what is going on, what the services are, what the taxes are, anything. You just have to go and play with it for a little bit. And of course, if you don't have a computer, that makes social media kind of. And what else did I want to say? Yeah. That's it. Those are kind of my concerns tonight, and thank you all for putting up with me. Amen. Where are we now?
May I make a comment before I say something else?
Sure, but don't criticize me.
Not at all, but you mentioned Essex Tech, a cost of $130 million to build that school for some 1,200 or 1,400 students. We bore a large portion of that after the state paid their share. Northern Essex County is looking at a new school at Whittier Tech for $413 million. We spent 130, they're going to be 413. So if you want to go to public meetings to talk about the cost of a school, it'll be very interesting up there. So are we getting pressured by the tech with our population going there? Yes, but it's still affordable.
Okay.
That's my comment on the Essex Tech. And with that, if I may, Mr. Chairman, if you see a veteran, please thank the veteran for their service.
Thank you, Dan. Motion to adjourn, or do we close?
So, well, you can close it yourself. You don't need a
The
motion.
meeting is closed. and
Thank
I'll
you.
go home to bed. Thank you.
Thank you.
Gary, nice to meet you.